Thank you to Rhino Shield for sponsoring a portion of this video. Alright, so every year Apple gives us new phones, and every year the Pro models are obviously like the best. And that hasn't changed. The 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max are obviously the better phones of this generation. More powerful chips, better cameras, more RAM, vapor chamber cooling, all wrapped in a design that either I think makes you love it or wonder like what Apple was thinking. Here's the thing with this generation. It feels different. The regular iPhone 17, the non-Pro model, isn't really playing like second string anymore. It's got a high refresh, 120 hertz display that was Pro only forever. The same selfie upgrade that the Pros got. It also starts at just under $800 with 256 gigabytes of storage, which is double what you used to get. So yeah, the Pro is still better. But is it $300 better? Or has the iPhone 17 quietly become the iPhone most of us should like actually buy? So I've been living with both of these phones for the past, say, like week and a half, running them through every test I could think of. And I think that the answer is gonna surprise you. All right, so going to this versus, like you are probably sure that the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the one I'm testing here, was going to be like my go-to iPhone recommendation. I've always gone with the biggest iPhone Apple makes. I use cameras heavily. Like the zoom is super important to me. My kids play sports, and like any dad, I'm constantly filming and taking pictures from the sidelines. But after like really using both phones, I am not sure the Pro is the obvious choice anymore. And to keep things clear here, when I say Pro in this video, I'm talking about both 17 Pro and Pro Max. That's specifically calling out like battery life. Because, spoiler alert, the Max is a battery monster. This year's lineup though, feels like Apple took everything that like we knew and they told us about iPhones and just like completely shuffled the deck. The Pros got bulkier, heavier, and way more creator focused. Meanwhile, the base iPhone caught up in areas where it used to lag like years behind. ProMotion used to be the biggest like buy the Pro feature. The thing that made scrolling, I don't know, through whatever Instagram or web pages feel buttery smooth, while the regular iPhone felt not buttery smooth, but not anymore. Ceramic Shield 2 and the new square selfie camera I've been talking about, it's the same on both phones. Now the Pro is still like the best feature-rich phone Apple makes. For the first time in a long time, it is not the obvious choice for most people. And that is like a seismic shift. If you think about it, for years the regular iPhone felt like, at least to me, like Apple's way of saying like, here's the bare minimum we can get away with, but still call it an iPhone. The display sucked. The cameras were years behind, and I think you felt it every single day. The base iPhone was slightly better version of the budget E model. This year, the iPhone 17 feels like Apple actually cares about people who don't want to spend over $1,000, and it's closer to the Pro line than ever. All right, so I want to start with design. So the iPhone 17 Pro, because Apple, I think, pulled one of the weirdest pivots I've seen in years. Last year, titanium was a feature, right? Aerospace grade, lighter than ever, stronger than ever. Fast forward 12 months, and we're back to aluminum. Which is like a jarring change at first. You pick up these Pro models and they feel significantly heavier than last year's titanium phones. There's a really good reason for that though. It's all about heat. So aluminum, obviously heavier than titanium, it's also about like 20-ish times more thermally conductive. So with the new vapor chamber cooling inside, they need materials that can actually pull heat away from the chip and spread it across the entire chassis. Apple even calls it heat-forged aluminum body, and you do feel a difference like immediately. Similar to the modern day Macs, these iPhone Pro models have a unibody back, where the whole chassis is basically one solid piece of metal. A big change that you feel in your hand, the edges are slightly rounded and it sits more in your hand like a polished block than a typical like glass and metal sandwich. It feels dense, it feels substantial. And at first, coming from the sharp edge, which is my daily driver for the past year, iPhone 16 Pro Max, kind of feel like swollen. But after using it for a week, I think it feels more comfortable. If you couldn't tell, I've been daily driving Cosmic Orange. I figured orange would be the best color for filming since like it's easier to spot when I'm setting up shots, and looks like the new phone, but it's way more striking in person than I expected. I don't think it looks great in pictures, definitely see it in person. And then there's the camera plateau. Apple didn't just make the camera bump bigger they made it like a statement. And if there was ever a sign that Johnny Ives never touched the design of this phone, it's the plateau, especially on the Pros. Some people love it, some people think it looks like a stovetop, but nobody's gonna mistake it for last year's iPhone, like for sure. Meanwhile, the regular iPhone 17 looks familiar. Nice pastel color, traditional dual camera bump, noticeably lighter in the hand. It's definitely not like an attention-grabbing phone. Both approaches work, and they're targeting, I think, completely different people. $300 apart, I think that sort of difference matters. Whichever phone you buy, it is still an investment, and whatever version of strong glass or ceramic Apple's putting on, when they hit the floor enough times, they are going to crack, and you're gonna wanna protect it. That's why I've actually been using this video sponsor, the Rhino Shield cases on my iPhone 17 lineup completely, and they've stepped up the game hugely this year with their cases. So the Solid X case, I think is kind of the star. It's evolution of their classic solid suit, but is redesigned inside and out. You get reinforced corners and inner shock grooves. They're gonna absorb up to 71% of impact force, even exceeded military drop standards, but it's still sort of ultra light and slim in the hand. And honestly, it's something that I trust because I wouldn't do this if I didn't. I like the Snoopy design, but if you prefer a clear case, Rhino Shield's got you covered. Their clear lineup is slimmer, lighter. It also comes with a lifetime anti-yellowing guarantee, which obviously shows huge confidence in the product. It feels almost invisible, just 2mm thick, and it still gives you really solid protection. There's also the Mod NX, which lets you swap out bumpers and backplates, switch up your style anytime. That's pretty cool. Got a Lakers one in there too, but a bunch of different options. If you want screen protection, also the Impact Protection Pro Screen Protector gives you glass-like clarity with plastic grade toughness, plus certified for blue light filtering, which is awesome. I have sleep issues. There's a lot of case options out there. There's a lot of brands. What I like with Rhino Shield is they don't just talk about protection, they actually back it up with lab tests and durability tests. They do drop tests, there's scratch resistance, UV exposure. All these cases go through these series of tests. And they're also serious about sustainability too. Every case is made from a single material. With the Rhino Loop program, they actually send back your old case to be recycled to the next generation of cases. If you are picking up any of the iPhone 17s, get a case, protect them. And now until the end of the month, use my code JOHN10 for extra 10%. Link will be down below. All right, so I think that this section, I don't know, where the rubber meets the road, I think where people are gonna make their decision when it comes to cameras. Both phones, probably not a surprise, take really good photos, but really good in different ways. 17 Pro and Pro Max finally have all three rear cameras at 48 megapixels. So wide, ultra wide, and telephoto. No more of well, ultra wide is fine, but telephoto's rough. It's all good. It's all sharp and detailed at 48 megapixels. The 1X camera, I think, is noticeably sharper than the 16 Pros. I'm talking about fine detail, individual sort of hairs, skin texture, even fabric weave. The 2x zoom is basically just a crop of that main sensor. It's nice to have, but man, that 4x telephoto, that is the star of the camera system. It is sharp, it's clean, it handles low light way better than previous generation's 5X. And even the 8X crop off of that sensor looks really good. The 4X has become, I think, my favorite focal length in the entire system. It's perfect for portraits, picking out details in landscapes, or just getting a different perspective without having to physically move. And for someone who's constantly filming, again, from the sidelines of my kids' games, having that extra reach without losing quality is day-to-day useful. And you can't always get closer to the action, but the phone does that for you. For video, Apple continues to be basically untouchable. Stabilization is awesome. Those 4 and 8X zoom options look fantastic. Add in cinema level camera features like ProRes RAW, Apple Log 2, 4K 120. This becomes clearly the most complete camera whole package Apple's ever made. Apple's also letting the Pro users record in what they're calling OpenGate. The Pro models can utilize more of that sensor to record in a 4:3 aspect ratio, or the more traditional 16:9, or even 9:16. Definitely something that people in the creative, I think, lane appreciate most. It's highly doubtful if people even know that it exists. But as of right now, kind of a big bummer, you can get a separate camera app to use it. And you have to record in ProRes RAW to an external SSD. So well, there's a feature that's nice to have for professional users, but I'm guessing most people will never touch. Now, in the iPhone 17's dual camera system, I think these actually look really exciting on paper. In practice, it's also pretty good too. It's a really nice upgrade for the base model. Photos feel like a cross between iPhone 15 Pro and 16 Pro, which sounds, I think, like a backhanded compliment, but I think it's actually praise. The images are sharp, colors are natural, processing has gotten way more sophisticated here. I took both phones to my daughter's soccer game, so shout out to Demon Hunters. Where that falls apart though, unsurprisingly, is the zoom. So look at these shots of the scoreboard. I'm guessing you can't even see the scoreboard in this picture. So what about now on 2x? So probably barely see it there too. So here's what it looks like digitally zoomed into 8x on the regular 17. And here's my Pro Max's 4x and 8x. Now you can see the difference. I live in zoom lens, so it is a deal breaker for me. But if you don't, the cameras on the iPhone 17 are really good. While not like flashy or like as headline grabbing maybe, the iPhone 17's camera is consistent and it is absolutely dependable. And for most people taking photos of family, friends, food, vacations, this covers 100% of everything that you're gonna need. And the big kicker, both phones get the exact same front-facing camera upgrade. It's a brand new 18 megapixel square sensor selfie camera, identical on the 17 and the Pro series. And it finally feels like a flagship front-facing camera. There's also a really cool ability to shoot horizontal selfies while holding the phone vertically. It is useful, it is awesome, and I love that it is on both phones. So here's the, I guess, camera reality check. You either need telephoto or you don't. I shoot, I'm guessing like 60% of my baseball photos and soccer photos at 4x or higher. If you're consistently cropping photos after the fact, go pro and don't worry about it. But for mostly taking photos of dinner and family or selfies, you'll probably never miss the zoom. The iPhone 17's cameras are perfect for everyday shooters. But again, you reach for telephoto, or if you want every possible pro feature, the 17 Pro cameras are genuinely impressive. I think this might be the biggest story of the year because Apple finally stopped gatekeeping their good displays. And for years, like literal years, and the argument that I made and others was like, the regular iPhone's great, that screen sucks. You have $400 Android phones with high resolution displays and Apple's charging $800 for a phone with 60 hertz. It was a tired argument, and Apple fixed it now. It's no longer stuck behind a Pro paywall. Not anymore. Every iPhone 17 now has 120 hertz Pro Motion OLED panel. They all hit 3000 nits brightness outdoors. Apple also added a new anti-reflective coating to cut down on glare, and their testing actually worked surprisingly well. So that means that the $799 base iPhone 17 feels fast and fluid in ways last year's iPhone 16 clearly did not. The difference is immediately noticeable. You're not being constantly reminded that you bought the cheap iPhone. Both phones handle reflections noticeably better this year. You can actually read content and watch videos in bright sunlight without looking like you're fighting a mirror. So the iPhone Pro Max's 6.9-inch screen is obviously it's more immersive. But the 6.3-inch display on the regular 17 is no slouch. And for most people, you're not giving up anything important here. The screen experience is basically identical between the 17 and the Pro models. Same smoothness, same brightness, same quality. The iPhone 17 just single-handedly eliminated Apple's biggest display advantage. That's $300 in the regular iPhone's favor, I think right there. Now you get into the obvious differences, things you'd expect. The Pro models get Apple's new A19 Pro chip, vapor chamber cooling system, and 12 gigs of RAM. The regular iPhone gets standard A19 with 8 gigs of RAM and no vapor chamber action. On paper, it's obviously a clear big win for the Pro. Here's the thing. Benchmarking scores don't really matter anymore. The power and headroom these processors give you is wild. Both can and will handle everything you throw at them. But if you want to know the benchmarks, and I wouldn't put a huge stake in these because I think user experience really matters more, here they are. So in absolute terms, the Pro Max is still a performance king, but aside from some computational stuff, I don't think you're gonna notice difference between these processors at all. They are both so fast that the bottleneck is not the chip anymore. The 4 gig of RAM difference, I don't think you're gonna notice huge amount either, at least right now. I'm assuming the extra RAM is for computational tasks and maybe something Apple has coming down the pipeline. But in day-to-day use, I didn't notice a difference. So the Pro's advantage only show up when you're pushing things, I think, hard. Pro video editing, long sessions of NFL Retro Bowl, in my case, or I guess other less good games. Heavy Apple Intelligence tasks where extra RAM might matter eventually. And that vapor chamber cooling actually makes a difference. So in our testing, the Pros stayed noticeably cooler under load during MagSafe charging, where other phones would spike close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit and start throttling. The new Pros barely got warm. I had a chance to bust out a new thermal camera, which is unnecessary, but I've been itching to use it, an infrared thermometer to kind of measure the temperatures. I tried to take a temperature average from the back and the plateau area, and the difference was genuinely noticeable. But for everyday use, and I'm talking about my everyday use, so filming kids' sports, social media, gaming, some photos and video, the iPhone 17 feels every bit as fast as the Pro. That's another Pro advantage that's smaller than I expected. Here's where the Pro Max just runs away with everything, and it's legitimately one of the best batteries I have ever tested. For light to moderate use, this is a genuine, like straight up 2-day phone. And this is exactly why I ended up going back to the Max last year. I tried the non-Max, the Pro, for a couple weeks to save some money and reduce bulk, but the battery life just ruined it for me. I'm constantly using my phone all the time. I get battery anxiety when I drop below 40%. So for me, that extra bulk was 100% worth it. And obviously, big caveat here, is battery life is the most subjective thing and mostly dependent on third-party apps, so your use might vary widely. When I used to end my day with my 16 Pro Max, usually I was at like 25 to 30%. The 17 Pro Max, I'm at 35 to 45%, which is a pretty big jump. So if you value battery life over all else, just go Pro Max and don't think twice. Apple officially rates the iPhone 17 Pro at 33 hours of video playback and the Max at 39 hours. Our real-world testing did back up those claims. I was, however, very impressed with the regular iPhone 17. Obviously, I expected worse battery life than the 16 due to the extra ProMotion that's going on here with the display. That wasn't the case, actually, which is a giant win for the 17. The regular iPhone 17 is rated at 30 hours of video playback, a few hours less than the Pro Max, but still very clearly a solid day of real-world use. In our drain test, the 17 lasted around 6.5 to 7 hours of screen on time, and the 17 Pro hit 7 to 7.5 hours, and the Pro Max, we got 7.5 to 8.5 hours. So if you are a heavy user, especially if you're doing a lot of video recording, the Pro Max battery advantage is real. But for most people, getting through a normal day, the 17 is not going to be a problem. After having lived with both of these phones, testing them, comparing them, thinking way too hard about the value proposition, the regular iPhone 17 is definitely the better iPhone for most people. At $800, you are getting 120 Hz ProMotion screen that feels just as smooth as a Pro. You're getting Ceramic Shield 2, the same selfie camera upgrade, wide and ultra-wide cameras that are really good, full day battery life, double the base storage of previous generations. So sure, the Pro is absolutely like the better phone. It's faster under sustained load, it stays cooler, it's got more RAM. Telephoto lens is generally useful. The Pro Max has absurd battery life. But $300 better for your use case? For content creators who need that telephoto reach, mobile gamers who push thermal limits, people who want the absolute best Apple makes regardless of price, yeah, the Pro certainly makes sense. For everyone else, 17 delivers like 90% of a premier iPhone experience for $300 less. And for the first time in years, the regular iPhone does not feel like a compromise. It feels like a choice. Apple has finally made a regular iPhone that doesn't feel like settling. It feels like a choice or showing you're being smart with your money. If you're someone who takes photos, doesn't obsess over them, who wants smooth performance but doesn't need to push thermal limits, who values having a really nice phone without spending Pro money, get the 17, you're gonna love it. The real question isn't whether the Pro is better, it obviously is. The question is whether it's $300 better for your needs. And for a lot of people, I think the answer is probably no. So, there it is. The iPhone 17 Pro is the best phone Apple makes. That's no surprise. But the iPhone 17 might be the best iPhone, pretty much everybody.